Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. And yes, we're getting back to the JRC here in just a moment, but before we do, the usual disclaimers. And of course, the trigger warnings. I do apologize for the background noise, but I'm kind of a little bit too lazy today to turn it off. So please, if you could, just try to bear with it, okay? Thank you, I appreciate it. I can't edit these things to save my soul. Alright, folks, if you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links will be there in the description box for you. We highly recommend the link we put in there for Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, where we get the bulk of the material for this channel on the Judge Rothberg Educational Center. It's got everything: court transcripts, photo documentation of injuries received at the JRC by the students. It has ER documentation submitted by former JRC students. We've got all kinds of stuff in there, so definitely, if you want to do a deep dive on your own time, that very much should be your first visit. We also have that link that takes you to Neuroclastic's website, where they have an article up where they surveyed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Now, considering the fact that the JRC took time out of their day to threaten Neuroclastic with a defamation lawsuit, they did not remove their article from their website. It tells me you really want to read it, so please go ahead and do so. Don't forget to share it on all your social media, and as always, we do have Neuroclastic's GoFundMe in there, because unlike the JRC, us advocates don't exactly have Benjamins coming out of our eyeballs. More's to pity. My front teeth and other teeth, due to severe acid reflux. Let's just say the money required, I would really need to actually be receiving checks from people like Soros to cover it, like everybody tends to accuse us of. So, if you can go ahead and share a little bit, I know they'd appreciate it. If you don't have the cash right now, please go ahead and share it instead, alright? Trigger warnings. When we, excuse me, 1 second, trigger warning allergies. Alright, there we go. We do have this channel marked not for kids, folks, because we do talk about darker topics like the Judge Rothberg Educational Center, like Agape Boarding School, in which case you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. We also use profanity on this channel, so if your child is 16 years of age or younger, parental supervision is very much advised. Also warning, we are in the allergy season that in the last 3 years, even during winter, has not let up, and I got allergy issues. So you're going to hear moments of me coughing, clearing my throat, all kinds of just kind of gross sounding noises, because I don't know how to edit these videos to save my soul, and considering how long a good majority of these videos are, trying to do it all over again without having those issues, yeah, no. So I do apologize for that as well in advance. Alright. 1 second here. Now we cut off in the middle of the last paragraph because I could only handle so much stupid. That, and I've been fighting the JRC now for at least, if if it's not 20 years, it's just barely. Excuse me a moment. Sorry about that. So, it gets really old to continue to read the same crap, the same tar and feathering of the survivors who have stepped up, and the students that are even there that haven't spoken out against them, by listing all the different behaviors. Essentially treating us like we are all 5 years old with extremely short attention spans. They do so as a shock tactic to get you to say, well, if those behaviors really are that extreme, well then just maybe, no, there is no maybe. There is no maybe. You have teenager neurotypicals doing stupid, dangerous shit that could end with themselves and other people dead every single day. But they are not targeted because they're not lambasted into infinity because of it. They're not going to be asked about it 20 to 30 years after the fact by their psychologist to make sure that you're not doing that anymore in quite the same way that people like myself are. Including the episode with the Ottoman back in the day that literally over 30 years later it still gets brought up every single doctor's appointment. It doesn't matter what these behaviors are, or even how extreme they happen to be. It does not give the JRC or any other facility the excuse to intentionally cause their students intense physical pain and get away with it. Okay? And you can talk about consequences, all of that. I hear you, I get it. But at the end of the day, why are you punishing people who are neurodivergent for being neurodivergent? You are never actually going to get to the root cause if you keep continuing to punish the actions and never doing any real work to get to the trigger that's causing the actions. It's just going to continue to be a never-ending cycle of abuse, both physical as well as psychological, for years on end. It is a circle jerk of suck. And I do not mean that in a fun way. So, that's why they do it. That's why it makes no sense. Putting aside, of course, the obvious, which is, I'm gonna treat you for your self-injurious behavior, the way you abuse yourself, by replacing you as the one who's harming yourself to me, and I'm now going to harm you instead. And we're all supposed to smile, declare that they are brilliant, and nothing in all actuality really changes except location and types of injuries received. You know, sorry, dry skin. But anyways, let me continue where I left off. We'll see how long I can read before. We'll give it the best shot, right? Okay. Alright, so the treatments used at previous instructions included psychotherapy, counseling, positive behavior supports, physical, mechanical, chemical restraints, seclusion and timeout, massive dosages of powerful psychotropic medications. Call me not impressed, and allow me to tell you why. Psychotherapy. You're trying to use that term because most laymen don't know that term. They read it and think, well, obviously, that is some intense therapy to keep us from going off our nutter, or to help us not go off our nutter. No. It's literally just psychology. You are going to see and talk with a psychologist whose job in regards to this is to help you find the underlying triggers that are causing the behaviors that are coming out of you. They're going to help you dig and find out what makes you tick, and when it does, why it makes you tick a certain way, if you know what I mean, right? It's just normal going to your shrink. The exact same types of things for individuals who seek therapy, who are neurotypicals, will go and talk to someone when they're going through a rough time. It's nothing special. It's not unique. It has nothing to do, really, with the type of things that the JRC is trying to assert. It's just literally normal therapy. And when you're autistic, thankfully, although this is rather new, you can seek those out who are the most familiar in working with other autistics, and they will help you find your triggers and work with you on doing self-coping mechanisms. They will work with you on getting to the underlying cause, what those triggers are, whether it is things in the past that needs to be confronted in a safe place, which that literally was the trigger for my very, very dangerous self-injurious behavior from when I was a kid. Just because I'm autistic doesn't mean my triggers can't have normal causes that also occur in my neurotypical peers. It's just the way they manifest outward into actions is where the main difference lies. Okay? Just wanted to get that out there. It's nothing special. Alright? Counseling. Again, this is not a special type of counseling. This is me going to speak with a licensed counselor, going over things in my life that I feel need to be worked on. Okay? Positive behavioral supports is again an umbrella term. It is not a specific form of therapy. So, JRC, that is a vague term that helps categorize a particular branch of therapies for people who are neurodivergent. You can't just say positive behavioral supports. You need to indicate which positive behavioral supportive therapies you're talking about. What did they try? Did they try positive behavior reinforcement? Did they try person-centered planning? Have they tried PT and OT by themselves? Is it a combination of positive behavioral reinforcement and ABA? Is it ABA without physical aversives? What type of positive behavioral support therapies that are underneath the umbrella have been tried in order to treat these behaviors? And why do you continue to not be specific when you try to list all the things that supposedly didn't work? Well, for me, that's an easy question to answer. It's because the JRC is full of shit. They don't know what positive behavioral reinforcement is. They insist that it and person-centered planning, person-centered therapy, everything that is literally puts me in the driver's seats of my own treatment program, they call it a theory, telling others that there is no data to prove it's successful, when it has literally been out now as a workable therapy for, because it came out right at the beginning of 2000, 26 years. Well, 25 years. Okay? And it's gone through quite a few different evolutions and tweaks since then. Just like all the other types of treatments do. But yes, you can't just say, well, we tried positive behavioral supports, we tried all this other stuff, and none of it worked, without getting more specific. Because if you keep using that vague term on laymen to try to get them to think that that's something that it isn't, you are misrepresenting yourselves. Okay? Can't just say positive behavioral supports. I want to know what specific therapies were tried to treat the behavior that are underneath the positive behavioral support umbrella. I want to know how long they were in that program. I want to know if there was any initial improvement. I want to know what the projection was from the beginning of the therapy and towards the end of the therapy, why they determined that it wasn't working. We're missing a whole lot of context here, right? It's the JRC using similar sounding words to pretend that they're saying something when in actuality they're not really saying anything at all. Now, most people wouldn't realize this, but people like myself tend to be JRC's worst nightmare, because we have worked in the field, because we do know what these terms mean, because we do know that if a therapy doesn't work, there is always medical history. There's always documentation from the beginning of the therapy to the end of it where they determine that they're going to have to try something else. JRC is giving us literally none of it. Okay? None of it. Because in all actuality, no. They did not try everything. We've proved that multiple times. And again, I'll bring back the subject that when it comes, but they got school to school to school. Isn't that program to program to program? Not necessarily, no. You may have a string of top schools. Some of these schools specialize in a particular form of positive behavioral type of therapy. So, for example, if you take your kid to a school that therapy isn't working, if you don't have a full functional behavioral assessment to help you understand why it's not working, then you can probably get confused why they keep getting kicked out of all these schools. But the thing is, some schools specialize in something extremely specific. And it tends to be something I've noticed that's a little bit regional too. For my region, the three most popular: ABA without Aversives, positive behavioral reinforcement, and person-centered. Now, it's called many different names: person-centered planning, person-centered therapy, person-centered all kinds of things. But it's essentially the same thing, right? In fact, I was actually one of the very first folks out here to be put on person-centered planning type of program, which was extremely successful, obviously. And then when I went to work for the very folks that helped me get into the service system, I was a part of the pilot, and by the time I got into that job position, we were actually pushing that out into the entirety of the whole state. So these different conferences I've told you guys I've gone and spoke at, and like maybe saw my apartment like maybe gathered together a single week and a half within a 6-month space. That was a part of it. It was training others on this new type of program, not from the doctor's side, but from the service system side. Okay? Which is different. But my point remains. There are several different types of therapies that are underneath the positive behavioral support umbrella. You can't just use that term, as though it is a therapy in and of itself, when it is a term that is there to describe a particular category of different types of therapies. So, when you say they tried positive behavioral supports, someone like the JRC needs to tell them, okay, which therapies under the positive behavioral supports umbrellas were tried? For how long were they tried before it was determined that those therapies were not working? Was there any consideration given to perhaps a supplementation of the plan with proper medication? Now, I know that's a dirty word to the JRC, medication, because they paint Big Pharma as the absolute boogeyman. Well, guess what? They kind of are the boogeyman, but because they are, and because they built their brand on greed, they don't want to be spending constant millions of dollars defending themselves in court, getting sued constantly by individuals because the drugs they're prescribing are constantly sticking neurodivergent kids into drug-induced comas. They're not going to keep their reputation or their business going for very long if that's what happens. These lawsuits are not cheap. Okay? So, they're going to rigorously test anything they push out there to the general public just to cover their own ass, and also make sure to spend as little money as humanly possible fighting any potential lawsuits in court. Okay? It's one of those rare instances where their own greed and self-interest actually acts in the overall benefit. Because they're so paranoid about being sued into the Stone Age, they're going to do all the required heavy amount of testing before putting anything out to market. Greedy people do not like spending money, folks. I know this. We're doing relatively well. I don't have $14,000 I can pull out of nowhere. But I'm doing relatively well, and I hate spending money at all. I twitch every time I have to pay for anything that's over $100. So, just saying. Now, we're going to go to where they're talking about physical, mechanical, and chemical restraints. I'm going to say it for the billionth time. The GED device is a mechanical restraint. Not only was it designed with the intent to cause immense physical pain, it's an electrical shock device. You are literally shooting a high level of electricity into highly concentrated and targeted parts of the human body. A body's natural reaction to being shocked with that much power is the muscles are going to tense. Which means the muscles are going to seize up. You can't move them. Can't bend your leg the way you want it to bend. Can't stand up due to the tension. You know what that makes it? A restraint. And certainly not less intrusive than any of the other ones that you all outlined. Muscle seizes, you cannot move of your own volition. It is a mechanical restraint. And it's just as much as a restraint as a straitjacket, as being strapped to a chair, being strapped to a 4-point board. And let's also go ahead and add in the fact that we know not only do they use the GED device, and it in and of itself is an actual restraining device, but they use the old methods too, along with shocking the students. We have videos, for God's sake. We've got them tying them to the shock chairs with their devices on. We've got the whole 7-hour video of Andre McCollins getting shocked over 31 times, tied to a 4-point board with his face down and a helmet on. So trying to convince folks that it is a less intrusive type of device makes no sense when you still use every single last other form of restraint that you listed there along with the GED device. Okay? When you do that, you can't make an argument as to how it is somehow less intrusive of a device to use. Okay? For the love of God, before you write stuff, re-review some of your own video surveillance videos, for God's sake. Chemical restraints. You mean shots to help other people calm down that are also used for neurotypical individuals who may freak out in hospitals. Neurodivergents are by far not the only individuals on planet Earth who freak out inside hospitals. Okay? I would know. I've been around hospitals since before I could walk. My mom's been in healthcare for over 40 years. I know I say it a lot, but when it comes to the JRC, it bears repeating. Okay? I know for a fact, neurotypical and neurodivergent alike, sometimes, depending on the situation, may need a chemical restraint, a shot to calm down enough so that the doctors can do their job. It is not something that people like me have a monopoly on, for God's sake. Seclusion and time out. Are you all aware that there is like a whole campaign against seclusion and restraint? It's been around for years. Us advocates literally advocating for years that we use the methods that we know work to address with the behavior instead of ostracizing a kid and locking them away. So, not a great argument on regards to that either. Right? And powerful dosages of psychotropic medications that just turned them into vegetables. I don't know, I look pretty human. What do you all think? Do I look human? Seem to be moving around all right. I can talk. I can move around like a loon. So yeah, very obviously I'm not in a catatonic stupor somewhere. With the only ability that I have left to me is sit there and drool and stare at walls. Alright? That is a gigantic and massive lie. And JRC, before you start with the whole, but you're not like them, if I could take a time machine and drag you all back to watch Little Tiffany, I want to talk about something along the lines of you gonna learn today. Okay? What gets you to the adult that you're seeing now, the middle-aged adult, is that I was surrounded by individuals who knew their damn jobs. Okay? I had individuals who would work with me, not do things over my head. Okay? They act like we automatically go to the absolutely high dosage, like, no. Would you like to know how it went down when I was a kid? You see, when I was in high school, and I got diagnosed, want to know what they started me out on to deal with the anxiety? Found out it wasn't the best medication for that, but that is the difference between someone who knows what they're doing and someone who doesn't. Because if you have a doctor that encourages you to have a constant line of communication open always, that you can reach out to when a medicine isn't working real well, you could set up an appointment, talk together in regards to what's not working, what was the medication making you feel like that was out of character for you, and wouldn't you know it, you get medicine that works. But anyways, you think they went straight to the heavy duty coma level shit? No. I was started out on about, it was 25 milligrams Zoloft. Now granted, Zoloft did not help at all. And they just kept upping the dosage until I ended up getting a new doctor. But yeah, they don't start you out on high level drugs that's gonna put you in a catatonic stupor level state. We do, however, know that the JRC puts people in catatonic stupors by torching them into one. Under the columns, ring any bells, JRC? So, there is that. Let's finish it up, shall we? After their admission to JRC and the addition of court-approved and court-monitored GED treatment to their individualized reward-based ABA treatment programs, you mean your stick and carrot routine. If you don't behave, we're gonna force you to experience pain so intense that it just completely takes away your ability to be able to think or react or do anything else other to sit on the ground and scream. Or you can earn a token and get a pizza party when you're 16 years old. Wow. Groundbreaking. These patients experience for the first time significant reductions in their SIB and AB and a newfound ability to make educational and vocational progress and safety to be with friends and family while living. Oh my God, I can't stand these people. Oh! A recent published peer-reviewed study showed 97% reduction in the frequency of SIB and AB by patients treated with the GED. So who peer-reviewed it, JRC? I mean, obviously, if you had a study done that was peer-reviewed and approved, you would be able to tell us who it was that reviewed that study with such a high reduction rate, right? So who was that? Well, since the GRC seems to be mum on the matter, let's find out, shall we? Let's find out. Let's find out, shall we? Oh, let's take a look. I like this. Because I want you to pay attention to this here. Yes, the Judge Rotenberg Center claims, folks, claims. Let me continue. A recent published peer-reviewed study showed a 97% reduction in the frequency of self-injurious behavior by patients treated with the GED device. Regarding the study and its peer review, The study, the claim of a 97% reduction in SIB and AB is based on a study titled Contingent Skin Shock Treatment in 173 Cases of Severe Problem Behavior. Well, wait, JRC. Haven't you told us repeatedly that only 52 people are currently on the GED device? What gives? Is this a particular study that covers several students over different years and times? Or are you inaccurately telling us how many people are currently on the GED device? Just a few questions I had. Let me continue. This study, published in March 2020, oh my God, are they kidding me? Involved analyzing the effects of contingent skin shock, positive punishment using GED device on severe problem behaviors in 173 individual cases at the JRC between 2001 and 2019. In regards to these individual cases, do we have details on each particular case? Are we going to be given like a case study for each single one? How they reacted to each thing? Are we going to be told, excuse me, what controls were in place during that study? Are we going to see in regards to what the data is in regards to the longevity of said treatment? Do they actually finally give us the answer to the question of once someone is no longer on the device, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, did those so-called positive new behaviors remain and continue on after they were no longer at the JRC and no longer had the GED device on them? Some more questions. Some questions. The findings. The study abstract indicates that a 97% reduction in frequency of severe, aggressive, and health dangerous behaviors was observed in the first full month of treatment with contingent skin shock across participants with various diagnoses. Oh God, here we go. I already see multiple problems wrong. What was that again, JRC, when you say that not every treatment works on everyone equally? Why the hell are you using the same treatment on an autistic as you would perhaps on a person with post-traumatic stress disorder or other developmental disabilities? I know you've got a few others in there other than just us autistic folks. If you don't believe that all programs work for everybody, why are you essentially making a whole bunch of people who don't even share the same diagnosis have this same form of treatment? And how in the name of God do you justify it? Let me continue. God. Peer review. The JRC states that this finding is based on a recent peer-reviewed medical literature. Peer review is a process where a study is evaluated by other experts in the field before it is published, aiming to ensure quality and validity of the research. Reviewers. The specific names of the individual reviewers on this particular study are not mentioned in provided search results. However, the study was published in the International Journal of Psychology and Behavioral Sciences. which is a peer-reviewed journal. This suggests the study underwent the standard peer review process for that journal. Important considerations. Now, I'm like a dog with a bone, folks. No, I'm not letting this go. Who the hell greenlit it? And why did they greenlight it? What did they see when they reviewed that study? And why are we not being provided with the information regards to the individuals that reviewed the study before it was allowed to be published? I'm not going to let it go. And why is the JRC making this assertion and not telling us who? Could it be possibly for the exact same reason that certain individuals who testified against the GED device did so anonymously? Food for thought, isn't it? Let's get to the important considerations here. Controversy. It's crucial to acknowledge the controversy surrounding the use of the GED device in aversive therapy at the JRC. While the JRC emphasizes the positive results of the study, there are significant ethical concerns and accusations of human rights abuses associated with this practice. Which means, folks, the ends do not justify the means. And I still want to know who reviewed it before allowing it to go forward to be published. I'm not going to be letting that go. I want to know who it is. I want to know their reasoning. I want to know why. What is it that they're seeing that all the rest of us who have worked in this field for years are not seeing? I want to know what they saw that the rest of the medical model on planet Earth is not seeing. I want to know it now. If you're going to use such an extreme form of so-called therapy on my brethren, fellow disabled people, I want to know who reviewed it and a very long, detailed explanation as to why. Differing perspectives. There are strong opinions on both sides of this issue. Some parents and families report the GED device has been life-changing for their loved ones, allowing them to overcome severe behaviors and achieve higher quality of life. Conversely, disability rights advocates and former students have described the use of the GED as inhumane and torture. You see that, folks? This is called systematic bias. So what do I mean by that? That means we are dealing with individuals who like to obscure things. In particular, when it comes to individuals going up against the GED device, they lean very hard on groups like ASAN or individual self-advocates who've made names of ourselves, like myself, like Temple, like Alex Plank, like John Elders, and former students. And they hammer on that as the opposition. But that is not fair. Because it is not just us advocates who are fighting for this barbaric practice to end. As in a previous video we've made, I've shown you all the different organizations including ARC of the United States, the single largest service provider for people with disabilities across all ages throughout our lives and the entirety of the United States. You wouldn't know that reading this. You wouldn't know the fact that you've had literally associations of doctors, nursing schools, government health organizations, for God's sake, come out against this. We have people who are neurologists, psychologists, psychiatrists who have come out against it from all walks of life, anywhere within the medical model or the service system. But they always lean on us. Why? That's an easy question to answer. Because if it's just us, and that's all the public sees, then the public's going to look over it. And it's not going to matter. It's ugly. It's horrific. It's mean, but that's reality. People pay attention when it's well-known, well-liked, well-respected doctors. People pay attention when two different UN special rapporteurs on torture come forward and tell you that what's happening at a school is torture. People pay attention when a service provider as large as ARC, with as many years of being a service provider with developmental disabilities, comes to the fore and stands against it. Then the outside world will pay more attention. The reason why that is, folks, is we do live in an ableist world, but it goes beyond that. It's because we live in a society that worships status. Okay? And you have to be a certain status for people to take you seriously. Whether you work within the service system, whether you work in medical care, if you work into mental health care, any other job, society as a whole, that is the deeper truth. Now, I'm not saying it's not ableist, it absolutely is, but overall, there is a deeper truth. We worship money. We worship status. We worship individuals who can present themselves as authorities. And we do not give the same respect to our peers. Now, we are going to go ahead and close on that kind of dark point, folks, but before we do, we don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Please don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time, and as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely do hope you have a good one. I will see you all later. Bye-bye, everyone.